Mr. Clerk, are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for coming to the work session of the City of South Fulton. Mr. Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Mayor William Bill Edwards,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Baker,
Present.
Councilmember Catherine Rouse,
Present.
Councilmember Carmelita Jones,
Present.
she's joining us via Skype, Councilmember Helen Willis,
Present.
Councilmember Naima Gilyard,
Here.
Councilmember Rosie Jackson,
Here.
and Councilmember Khalid. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I understand that the representative from the YouthSpark is on her way. So what I would do is hold it till she gets here, Mr. Clerk. And let's do this. I think, are you ready, Ms. Gilyard? Let's bring up Ms. Gilyard's discussion on the senior exemption.
I brought the senior exemption up at our last meeting, and really what I want to know is whether or not it's feasible, and if it is, what it impacts, what it doesn't impact. And one of the main reasons is because many seniors have received the tax estimated bill from the county and, has charges for a senior bill that they never received before. So I would like some feedback on that in terms of when we could receive it. It might be during the budget process, I don't know. But I know that I'm one of the seniors that was never billed for that. So could you please?
Mr. Manager?
So I think there were a couple of things that were on the assessment that we gave some information to put it on the website, and I believe we provided council with an informational memo that described how some of those fees were just simply a duplication and they were spelled out inappropriately through the assessment. The billing piece, I don't think those would be included. As far as the senior exemption, the CFO and his team, they're looking into it. And so what we'll do is just provide an informational memo. We got the request for the discussion on Friday. So if there are key things that you would like us to look at specifically, if you tell us now, it's not a problem. We'll make sure to do so and respond either at the next council meeting or before.
Well, I did do a lot of research, and a lot of cities don't have a senior exemption. Some do. I found one for the city of Decatur, and it's based on age, somewhat similar to the county. And at a certain age and a certain income bracket, you can get an exemption. And so, so I was waiting to finish. So that's something to look into. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay.
So I know, so basically, similar to the city of Decatur, what you're trying to find out is what other cities do, and then what the impact on our revenues would be of golf.
Right, and the impact on our revenue is really crucial in terms of if we do A, B, or C, how is it going to impact our revenue? And of course, if it's going to reduce it, and then if it does, what would we do or not do?
So I would ask, would council be okay with us addressing this through the budget process?
Yes.
Because you also have to make a decision on the millage rates, so it would be tough for us to.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay, Councilwoman Willis and then Councilwoman Rouse.
I just would like to keep, us to keep in mind, all of us, that this is something, the exemptions was a discussion before we incorporated, and there was a discussion throughout getting people to vote for the referendum. And one of the things that was promised is that whatever exemptions seniors were getting, that they were going to get those same exemptions if we were to become a municipality. So I know that while revenue is critical, and we have to see what the impact is, but I would just like to make sure that we are, if we can, maintain whatever exemptions seniors are getting now, that they continue to get those exemptions.
Councilwoman Rowland.
And I was seeking clarification because I know we've had a couple town hall meetings, and as it stands right now, if a resident lives in Fulton County and in the city of South Fulton, they are already eligible for senior exemptions. So I'm trying to get clarity on what additional, I know they're, 62, 65, 70, you get different exemptions. So is this additional in addition to those that you're seeking?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that, if that's okay, Mayor, I've looked at the county, they have about 5 or 6, which are very different than what they used to be. And I know because I've gotten them all these years, and they've changed, okay? They have more now, with more income levels now than they used to have in the past. So that's one change, okay? But there are cities that have, the county has theirs, and the city has theirs as well. Okay, so that is what I'm referring to. And I know by working with the People's Campaign and being on the Finance Committee for the People's Campaign and digging very deeply into the budget for the city before we became a city, that we never dealt with that deep because we didn't have information to be able to do that. And what we talked about was that, more than anything, was that we felt that we had enough revenue to be able to be a city, to start out, go from there, and to really flourish. So I just...
So can I ask a clarifying follow-up question? So you're really asking about the fiscal impact now that they kind of expanded the definition of different income strata since they've changed the income guidelines. What does that mean to our bottom line?
Well, what does it mean? No, well, we know what the counties is, and we don't have any control over that. But for a city, if we attempted to develop an exemption, a senior exemption for our city, how would it impact our city? Because some have both and some have one.
Okay, so here's my confusion came up. Okay. Unless we know what we're going to do as a city, the county already has theirs.
Right.
We figured that out. Then he has to proceed to find out how there is a physical impact upon that. So my question would be then, the first thing we have to find out is what's different that we're going to do than what the county does.
Exactly.
That's what I'm hearing. Go ahead.
Well, it's deeper than that, because based on what he's saying, we have to factor in you said it wasn't the same as it had been previously in place.
No, the county.
Right, I'm very clear, but that's still, right. Okay, I got you.
All right.
I got you.
Councilwoman Willis.
Mr. Malazzi, you sent me, I asked you this about a month ago, because I've also been researching this, because the questions have been coming up in my town hall meetings. And you sent me a listing of all the exemptions that you're going to propose for South Fulton to offer. And basically, these are the exemptions that people are already receiving. Right. But what was explained to me is that they will be city exemptions if we adopt these same exemptions, and individuals will not have to reapply for these exemptions because they're already receiving them. So, have you in any way done any analysis to see what impact it's going to have on our bottom line? Because there were 4 of them that you sent me.
Yeah, therefore, we have the general
Right.
for every citizen of the city is 30,000.
Right?
Then you have 60, 65, that will be additional 15,000. Then you have 65 plus income, that's an additional 10, so it comes to 55. Then you have 70, you have additional. So those 4 are the county approved. Those 4, every citizen of the city, every resident of the city is applicable to that.
Right.
Now, if you want, in addition to what is already, because everything that we have is already in our charter, the city automatically, when you approve the charter, is already in the charter. It's the city adopted those ones.
Right.
But they are the same for the county. If you want, in addition to those ones of general 65, 65 plus 70, you want additional to that, then that's where you will say, okay, we need additional to this one. But those ones are applicable to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Mr. Manager, I think you kind of get the gist of where we're going. Just need to go back and find out what it is that we actually are looking at before we go to the budget to see how it's going to affect us. So we would charge you to come back with something.
And so now, based on what council has asked, we will be analyzing this process and incorporating it into our millage rate suggestions and addressing it through the budget process.
That is correct.
And you want to see multiple scenarios based on what you decide on the millage rate.
Exactly.
Got
We
it.
got it. We got it. Okay, Sparks, YouthSpark?
Okay, that's the,
They're here.
okay. That's the YouthSpark presentation made by Ms. Jennifer Swain, Executive Director. This is
Swain.
sponsored by Councilmember Willis.
You know, you're 12 years old and you're living with your mom, and your mom's just struggling because she didn't think that life was really going to work out like this for her, and she doesn't have a man around, and the men that are around haven't always been that great. Sexual abuse is becoming kind of normal for you, and you think that other people don't have secrets that are as bad as you, and maybe you tried to talk to somebody at school and they haven't really heard you, or maybe they just haven't had time to listen to you. And so you're seeing these girls on the videos, and they're so pretty and they're so sexy, and so your way at 12 of escaping into this fantasy world is to think about what it must be like to be one of these girls, and you know that adult men already look at you, and you wonder how you can kind of use that. I'm just a child, and that's how I was supposed to live, like a child. So one day you're coming out of school, and there's a guy outside in a Cadillac, and he's nice looking. I mean, he's got a baseball cap and the jeans and the Tim, and he tells you how pretty you are, and you know how pretty your hair looks, and it's been a while since anybody even really noticed anything about you. And for the first time, you feel like somebody's really interested in you, because now all of a sudden he's asking you about your dreams and your hopes and where your father's at, and he says that he could be a daddy to you. The people that I shouldn't have depended on, I'm depending on for support, for support, for support. And so that night, he takes you to a club, and he puts you up on the stage, and he gives you a few drinks, and there's men throwing dollars at you, and it's scary, but all the time you're just looking at his face in the back of the room, and he's like, you know, go ahead, baby girl, go ahead, you're doing it for daddy, and you're feeling proud because nobody's ever said that to you. And so then that night, he tells you that there's more stuff that you gotta do, and he takes you into a room, and there's a man there, and he tells you to strip, and you think this is something you'll never do. And yet, there's a part of you that already knew how to do this, because that's what your stepfather's been doing to you all these years before. And so you turn that trick, and it's like a part of you that died inside. And so you come out of the club that night, and you get in the car, and you know he's pumping 50 cents, and he takes you to McDonald's, and he tells you you did a good job tonight, sweetie. And he's stuffing his pockets with the $1,000 that he made. And right now, you're happy. The people that I shouldn't have depended on, I'm depending on for support, for support. For this moment, all the sexual abuse or the neglect complex, or the drama, or the pain, or the trauma has prepared you for tonight when you stepped across the line. You always thought you never really quite stepped across. And you don't realize that night what it will be like to be on the track and get raped. And you don't realize the daddy isn't really going to protect you. You don't realize what it's like to have a gun out of your head that night. You don't realize what it's going to be like when you catch your first STD. You don't realize what it's going to be like when you first come home and daddy beats you for the first time because you didn't make enough money. You don't know what it's going to be like to have cops officers to trade sex with you in exchange for not being arrested. And then sometimes you do that and they still lock you up anyway. You don't know what it's like to sit up in jail and know that you just made $1,500 for your pimp last night, but he won't come down and put $200 bail on just to get you out a few days early. You don't know what it's like to walk down the street at 6 o'clock in the morning when you're just getting off work and people are starting their day and they see you and they know what you do and they look at you in a way that you just don't feel like you belong in that world anymore. And you don't know what it's like to feel like you've lost part of yourself along the way and to feel like you'll never leave. And no matter how many times you try to leave, they'll always find you and catch you. But that night, what you care about is the fact you ride in the Cadillac, you eat McDonald's, you listen to 50, and you got this one man you really think loves you sitting right by your side.
First, the truth. The fact that Councilman Lee, you are president. Yes, sir.
Oh, hi, good afternoon, good evening. Mayor Edwards, to all the members of the council, thank you so much for this opportunity to share our information with you today. I'd like to first apologize for my delay and for any inconvenience it caused to your agenda. And also thank you, Councilwoman Willis, for connecting us and making this possible today. My name is Jennifer Swain, and I am the Executive Director for YouthSpark. YouthSpark is the first nonprofit that was created in Atlanta to respond to the needs of youth who were being commercially sexually exploited. We were born because of former juvenile court judge Nina Hickson in Fulton County Juvenile Court, along with Deborah Richardson, former Commissioner Nancy Boxell, and Stephanie Davis, and they began to create Georgia's first response. It was just a few short years ago that girls as young as 11 and 12 years old would come before Fulton County Juvenile Court, and at that time the law allowed it as a misdemeanor and not a felony. We have created such a movement here in Georgia to respond to the needs, and I'd like to share a bit of that information with you today. Not only are we willing to offer our services and resources to the city of South Fulton County in any way that we can, because our youth service center inside of the Fulton County Juvenile Court also serves youth in South Fulton, the city of South Fulton. But there are several initiatives that everyone in this city and across the state is gearing up for, and one of them being the Super Bowl. In any instance where there's a lot of people moving into a city for a particular sporting event, whether it be the Super Bowl, the Masters, or any other event, there's typically an increase of commercial sexual exploitation and those involving youth. So today, I'd like to share just a little bit of information. You have all supporting documents in your folder here to accompany what I've said. So please don't think that you have to memorize everything. You have lots of statistics and research in your packet that you can reference. But I wanted to just share an overview with you guys of the actual problem. I know that if anybody has seen the movie Taken or watched a Law and Order episode, then you may have a particular view of what you think human trafficking is. Today I just want to share a bit of that information because human trafficking is the umbrella term. Atlanta and the Atlanta metro area is considered to be a hub here nationally for this. And when we talk about the term of human trafficking, it includes both adults and minors. And for the purpose of today's conversation, I'm going to share with you about the YouthSpark response and how we advocate to protect minors. We do not say that there's a such thing as a child prostitute, because there is not. As a child, you lack the mental capacity to make a decision to sell yourself for sex. When you have the umbrella term human trafficking, that includes what happens domestically right here in our community, as well as those foreign-born victims who may be brought here from other locations. You may hear terms such as child sex trafficking, sex slavery, the commercial sexual exploitation of children, but at its core, the definition is sexual abuse that's accompanied by remuneration in cash or in kind. When you have a young child exchanging a sex act for a place to live, if they're exchanging any sexual act for a place to sleep for the night or for food, it is considered to be commercial sexual exploitation.
Turn on the left-hand side, is it green or red?
Thank you. There are a myriad of red flags. I'd like to say that if you spot any one of these red flags, this child could or could not be a victim, but that's not true. Human trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of children happens in every culture, in every community. It just looks differently. Here are some of the red flags and warning signs that we've gathered over the years that typically alert any mandatory reporter or youth serving organization to refer that child for more care because there may be a suspicion of commercial sexual exploitation. This is what we like to say is the issue and the problem. Here's how we look at the issue, but there are lots of things that happen to children, and one of the things that we study at YouthSpark is to determine how children fall up in this environment and what we can do to intervene earlier. So here's what we like to call the pimp. This is where the child actually believes that older man is her boyfriend. That's the #1 reason that girls are referred to our youth service center, because they are 14 with a 20-something-year-old boyfriend. Here's what we like to think is all the things that happen that we as a community could have intervened in the life of that child before they actually reached that adult who bought and sold them. We don't just look at the issue of human trafficking concerning the victims only. At YouthSpark, we look at this as because this is a very lucrative and money-making business, we look at this with the basic laws of economics. Unfortunately, with the supply being our children, the demand being fueled by those who have a desire to purchase sex with a young person. And we believe that if we begin to tackle this problem using these basic laws of economics, that we can too prevent children from falling into this in the first place, and also hold the adults who made this possible accountable. I want to share a little bit of background on the youth that we serve in our youth service center. We last year launched in partnership with Fulton County. We were able to raise a $700,000 capital campaign and use our own private dollars to create a safe space, not just for girls, but for boys and LGBTQ youth as well. After partnering with Georgia State University in 2015 for the Atlanta Homeless and Runaway Youth Count, which you also have in your packet, we recognize that boys and LGBTQ youth are one of the largest vulnerable youth groups that have gone below the radar and have lack of access to services and care, which is why we created our center to respond to the needs of those two groups as well. 90%, all of our youth we serve are people of color. However, it's important to note that trafficking happens in every culture, every community. It just looks differently. This is not a South Side problem. This is not a downtown problem. This is an entire state problem. I would like to specifically state that as of this year, since January 1, we've received 89 referrals, and 23% of those referrals come from zip codes in city of South Fulton. We recognize that the graduation rates for Fulton County was only 87%, 77% for those economically disadvantaged, and while the overall dropout rate is only 2%, it's 3.4% for disadvantaged students and 2.5% for students of color. Disconnected youth, those who are not involved in school, they experience more trauma and victimization, and they're at the highest risk for sexual exploitation. I wanted to just share background as we begin to close out our presentation on why we have the problem. One of the reasons that I was connected with Councilwoman Willis is because the Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitts has created the new Fulton County Task Force in order for us to bring the advocates together working on the ground and to harness the power of the Board of Commissioners to be able to create a unique response as we gear up for the Super Bowl. Atlanta is one of 14 cities with the highest rates of prostitution involving children. Unfortunately, people have heard that Atlanta is #1. If any of you have heard that, we like to undergird everything that we do at YouthSpark in research. Unfortunately, there's only one study out here that rates cities in chronological order, and that was done by the FBI in 2005, and that list was in alphabetical order. And that is how Atlanta became number one. We are not number one in the world, but rather if we're number one, number 10, or number 13, this is nothing that we want for our city. Atlanta is also a top sex tourism destination. We have a lot of strip clubs per capita here. This is not the pedophile, the creepy guy in the park. This is really people that don't identify or actively seek out children, so this is not the pedophile range. These are young people who are caught up in the adult market because men who pay top dollar to purchase young ads do not bear the responsibility of knowing whether that child is 18 and under or not. I'll share information with you about that in just 1 second. With the home of the largest international airport, and I must say that I have worked very closely with the security director there to be able to help respond to the needs and educate all of those coming through our airports. But when you have 2,500 arrivals and departures every single day, it really does make it lucrative for people to fly into our city. There's about 10% of buyers that actively engage and come through the airport, but the other 90% are homegrown. We also have just over 1,200 miles of interstate that if you've ever driven far north or far south, you actually notice that the billboards change. They're not advertising furniture anymore. They're not advertising cars. There's a very young face and they're saying pull over, we have showers. Pull over. Truck stops throughout the state of Georgia are very vulnerable hotspots as well, and we know that youth are exploited to that avenue. Along the 4 major portals on the street, through hotels with actual buyers, online, and with escort services, internet activity has exploded, triple more than any other avenue. So your children are now lured in online, although the actual sexual act may take place right in the community, they are approached and lured online. In 2010, we wanted to create a study to figure out why we have this problem. If we didn't have anybody who wanted to buy them, we wouldn't have anybody who could sell them, not even themselves. And so we recognize that as much of the focus that we need to create on working together to create a response, we really have to make sure that the men who do this are held accountable, and it's no little secret. So this is a quick fact, and you also have this research study in your packet where we found out in 2010 that 7,200 men knowingly or unknowingly purchase sex from a young person every single month. Only 10% are actively seeking a young person. The other 90% try to remain willfully ignorant that they do not know. Once we figured that out, we embedded a store study to alert that caller and that buyer that he would indeed be purchasing a minor. 47% when they knew that they would have a minor went through all 3 warnings. That is a matter of law enforcement. The other 53% is a matter of educational opportunities that we can do just like this one so that we can share the word that we have to all start that communication. But 47% is the reason why we need legislation to help hold not only the people accountable who do this, but the businesses who look the other way. Here's just a quick geographical snapshot. Again, people who purchased the largest group, and they just told us outright, 42% gave their location of north of 285. 23% gave their location of south outside of the perimeter. And again, only about 9% gave their location is in above the airport. Buyers drive the market. No buyers, no businesses. In 2016, we began pulling all of the arrest records of the Metro County, and we found out that prostituted people and young people of color were disproportionately arrested than those who purchased them. 10% of all of the prostitution-related arrests in 2014, only 10% were those who purchased them, not the prostituted individuals. Arresting buyers is effective, and research shows that it will decrease recidivism rates. So in order to disrupt the supply chain, all we have to do is really link together all of these different youth-serving organizations who can, number one, respond to the needs of the children, which is why we're most proud that our youth center is based inside of Fulton County Juvenile Court. But we also have to make sure that we train people, any youth-serving organization, on what to see and how to get the child into care. If we intervene earlier, then we can absolutely decrease that child's intervention rates, that they will likely become approached by a trafficker and recruited into the sex trade here. I just wanted to share with you guys a quick snapshot as to ways. Intervention spots number 1, 2, and 3 are things that can easily be replicated and shared with any youth serving organization. It doesn't have to be a YouthSpark, it can be a Boys and Girls Club. The last three requires a level of legislative advocacy and systems change. And that's why I am grateful today for your consideration to model legislation that they have created in Fulton County, but also create unique responses to how you educate your community as well. We would like to offer ourselves at YouthSpark as a resource for you guys to help you build partnership with high-risk serving youth organizations. Make sure that everybody in the city of South Fulton knows how to look and refer for care. Our center will absolutely accept referrals of young people, those who are confirmed victims and those who are unconfirmed. Children do not know that they are victims. They simply believe that he is my 29-year-old boyfriend and we are doing what we have to do. We also want to encourage everyone to make buying risky. We have a new program and we hope that City of South Fulton law enforcement will join in with that as we create Georgia's first demand-oriented police training model. And we'll do so and be releasing that information at the end of the year. Lastly, here are important numbers as well. The human trafficking hotline is one that should be posted in every bathroom of every public place or any place that a victim would be as well, including restaurants, bars, anywhere that alcohol is sold, including strip clubs and the adult entertainment venues. And lastly, my contact information should there be any follow-up required. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity to present, and I really sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Swain. This is very good information. I do remember I served with Nancy Foxwell, it was one of her pet peeves. And you all have come a long way since then. So I think Ms. Willis.
Yes. Thank you for coming to present. I did participate when Chairman Pitts did seek me out to help champion this for our city. Attorney Walker does have the resolution and the ordinance that she has pulled together for me. And we were going to put it on this agenda, but we decided to push it off until the agenda after I think the 1st of August when we decided to put it on. So I hope that all of you all will support and support this legislation as a resolution and its ordinance. My question to you is the signs that are being posted throughout Fulton, that's being requested of businesses to post throughout Fulton County, where can we get that, or is there any costs associated with those signs?
Well, there are no costs associated with that, but if you follow the model that Chairman Rob Pitts created, he wanted to go above and beyond to ensure it was written and signed by law by Governor Deal last legislative session, but not very many businesses know that it actually exists. And so the sign is printed, it is available online. I can share that to you as well. But if you're following his method, then he laminated it and attached Velcro. Because there are fines associated if you fail to post it.
Right. I'll get with the city manager on that. One of the things that Chairman Pitts did ask is for all 15 of his cities in Fulton County adopt this legislation that he has, that the county has adopted. So the county adopted legislation, but it's only for the jurisdiction of Fulton Industrial. So each city will have to adopt their own policy around sex trafficking.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Thank you, Ms. Swain, for coming, and I want to thank, thank Councilwoman Willis for inviting me. That's kind of like a pet peeve for me as well. But what I'd like to know, you said your facility is in the city of Atlanta. So, and you also stated, if I heard you right, you said that South Fulton was one of the leading for sex trafficking?
Well, the Fulton County is, but when I pulled, just before I came here, I pulled all of our referrals since January 1, and out of the 89 referrals that we've received, 23 of them have been out of the city of South Fulton zip codes.
Okay, so, and I guess where I'm going now is I love satellite offices, because basically, if we can't get to downtown, how can we get a satellite in the city of South Fulton?
Well, we have a model that is replicable by lots of organizations, by ways that works for them. And so, as I stated a few moments ago, that you don't have to have a youth service center solely dedicated to exploit and abuse youth. We've educated people in Boys and Girls Clubs. We've educated people as court-appointed special advocates. any youth serving organization that has mandatory reporter requirements, then we are able to pass off our knowledge to them and serve as technical assistance. However, we have a model that we are engaging right now to replicate, and I would love nothing more than to provide this service for South Fulton.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Gilyard.
I too want to thank Councilwoman Willis for bringing this to our attention and for asking me to come. In fact, a few days ago, I was talking with one of my constituents and she says, well, I want to volunteer. She said, but I don't want to go back to teaching. I said, well, what do you love? And she said, social services. And I want to deal with kids and domestic violence, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm going to pass this information on to her and other information that we have received for social services in the community. So thank you so very much. This is it's really a lot to just sit and listen to it and to understand what's happening out there. So it's a bit much.
Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Ross.
Yes, as we get ready to send out our business license renewal, I think it would be very helpful to send this information and make sure that they are in fact complying with this, the current mandate. You know, we have over 1,300 businesses in the city, and I think it's a great opportunity to educate them about this important issue. Thank you for your information.
Just a couple things, Mr. Manager. Before we bring this legislation back, I would like to make sure that everybody on this board gets an opportunity to read and make comments.
I'll send it out.
Okay, hold on, I'm not recognizing. Secondly, those staff we have who are stakeholders and things like this, or professionals, input on it also. None of these people, they may not have anything. I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to lay eyes on it. So when it comes back, it'll be ready to pass, okay? The other thing was, and Councilwoman Jackson, you're right when you asked about satellites, you know, that becomes with a financial impact, but I tell you this, there's enough churches around here that we can partner with. You know, we got some of the biggest churches in Atlanta, Georgia, in our city. That's true. That we can partner with to do things like that with your support in terms of training. And lastly to you, I want to say this. I think one of the things I heard that caught me more than anything was buyer's risk. That bothers me because of the fact that when you say that, you know, the buyers get off and other folk go into jail. I think that's one thing that we really need as we look at this document, Ms. Willis, as we look at this document to see if there's anything we can, in our city, that we can address that has something stronger than what we find when the person comes out and calls himself a John. Exactly. All right. Okay, Ms. Willis, you good?
The fines are pretty stiff for not posting the signs. So I think it's going to be very important that we jump on this. We have major interstates that run through here. We have 285. We got the old National Corrado. We have the Fulton Industrial that we're trying to annex into our city. We even have the Roosevelt area. And so we also have Highway 92 that we got to watch out for. So anywhere that we're surrounded around hotels, we need to get ahead of this before the Super Bowl. And then we need to send a clear message that sex trafficking is not tolerated in the city of South Fulton.
May I respond to
Go right.
your question? I appreciate your picking up on that as well. I know that the children really break our heart, and that's why we're here. But again, if we didn't have the buyer, then we would not have the business. And in 2017, we worked with former chairman at Fulton County, John Eves, and we were able to create local legislation that empowered the city to go after buyers after they saw how we pulled the arrest records and noticed the discrepancy of those who were arrested. They created that ordinance, and they did put out a call to make it replicable in other counties. The city of Hapeville have already adapted that as well. So I'm willing to share that with you, Councilwoman, if you would like to present it as something to model.
I think that you have 8 advocates here. Without a doubt. And that we want to get on board with you, Councilwoman Baker.
Yes, first of all, thanks, Councilwoman Willis as well. Very detrimental piece of legislation that I'm sure, as the mayor said, we will advocate for. I wanted to ask you in reference to your referrals in the school system, and I wanted to just know, do HIPAA laws prevent them from referring students or young people to you?
No, sir. In 2008, the mandatory reporter law that requires teachers and other educators to report victims of child sexual abuse was amended to include when there's sexual abuse by a third party, not just a parent or caretaker. So it is by law, they are required. We do have trainings available for mandatory reporters, school counselors as well, and information so that we can share that with them as well, but they are required by law. If a child is exploited or abused sexually by the parent, caretaker, or a third party, which includes that pimp, then they have to report.
All right, thank you. And also, I just wanted to highlight something that you said. I've been trying my best to actually explain away what you said in reference to the alphabetical order, as far as the misrepresentation of Atlanta being, number one for that. I mean, that is a narrative that's been spread for well over 10 years, and I'm glad that you're putting that in your presentation, so thanks.
I'm going to have another comment, Ms. Jackson, Ms. Rao.
Your data relative to education, was that general information about Fulton County schools, or is it particularly the young people you're working with directly?
What do you mean?
You had a slide that talked about, the graduation rate.
That's specific to Fulton County.
But not necessarily to the population side. Okay.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Ms. Burke.
Next item is a discussion on TSplost pending projects by Fulton County.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight with Mike Graham, our land administrator. So if you have any questions after the small presentation that we'll do on Danforth Road and Inner Road, we'll be glad to respond back to you.
Before you start, is this phase 2? Is it still phase 1?
Phase 1.
Okay, go ahead.
Just very quickly, what Danforth Road will do for the city of South Fulton, that will be the second phase of Danforth Road. The first phase was done by the city of Atlanta, and this is the continuation from Reebok to Cascade Road, and it's going to be a project that mimics the current conditions on Danforth Road. It's about 0.8 miles, and the scope is to install 5-foot sidewalks with 2-foot stamped concrete and curb and gutter. At this point, we have 35 parcels that we need to acquire before we start finalizing the design and starting construction. Out of the 35 parcels, our land division has acquired 28 parcels, and we have 7 parcels remaining. The construction of this project is, if we acquire everything that's needed, it can be led to construction this year in the fall. An estimated construction time is about 18 months, and the preliminary estimated cost before receiving the bids is about $2.25 million. With regards to Inner Road, the limits is from the current existing sidewalks that's close to Leonard Lane and extends to Sanford Junction Boulevard. The length is about 1.5 miles. The scope of work is 5 to 6 foot sidewalks along the west side and 8 foot sidewalks along the east side. We have as well drainage improvements with curb and gutter and 2-foot stamped concrete that will provide us a small barrier from pedestrians. The right of way, we have about 36 parcels. We have acquired 30 and we have remaining 6 parcels. The construction, if we acquire all the rights were needed for the project, it also can be led to construction this fall in 2018. The estimated construction time for this is about 20 months, and the preliminary estimated cost is about $2 million. By the way, all these projects are funded with TSplost, and it's not at the cost to the city of South Fulton or Fulton County. With regards to the rights of acquisition, just briefly, our land division was able to work with property owners on Danforth Road, 28, again remaining 7 on Inner Road, 30 and remaining 6. They follow certain procedures, and before coming to you and present what is needed for condemnation, it's just we wanted to assure you that our land division has offered a fair market value compensation to make sure that the impacts to the proposed sidewalks will be as the existing conditions are not better. And at this point, the required action needed in order to condemn those projects is an authorization from the city of South Fulton to use eminent domain to acquire the real property interest necessary to construct and complete the proposed sidewalks for both projects. At this point, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to respond myself or Mike.
Do you have the name of those people that you're looking at for eminent domain?
Yes, we do have the information, but typically we don't release at this stage.
I'm not
Yes.
Yeah, I just wonder if you have.
Yes, we do.
Is it a great number?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing, listen, I'm gonna show you this. When we do sidewalks, as we go in the future, if I'm still living here, 5 feet ain't getting it. I mean, I was in Broward County a week ago. This fella, 5-foot sidewalks ain't getting it no more. Everywhere you go, you have to widen sidewalks, pedestrians can pass each other, and kind of, entice people to do the walking. And then you have 5 foot on one side and 8 foot on the other. I'm not sure what that example means. Can you explain why you have 5 foot on one side and 8 on the other?
And the reason why we did is because on the opposite side we got more rights of way that we didn't have to acquire much on the opposite side. So, and also provided more continuity to the existing, to the new multi-use trail of the Wolf Creek. And I totally agree with you that the minimum sidewalk should be, to me, I'm a fan of wide sidewalks and also providing a buffer for pedestrians to walk. That's the reason with that. We got away from the beauty strip and we provided now 2 foot of stamped concrete. But it should be about 6 to 8 feet sidewalks. But soon we're going to be doing the comprehensive transportation plan for the city of South Fulton and the rest of South Fulton cities. Yeah, we're moving very aggressively with that plan. At that point, you should be able to adopt the minimum width of your roads or having, on your new developments and so on to ensure that they provide minimum width of sidewalk.
Wait, based on your response to me on the 5 foot sidewalk, has to do with acquiring more land.
That's correct.
Then you tell me about eminent domain, but out of the other side, I'm stuck with eminent domain. So if it's about acquiring more land, should we do that in terms of 5 foot sidewalks also?
What it does is sometimes it doesn't matter if you need 5 foot sidewalks or 8 foot sidewalks. Some property owners are easy to release what we need, maybe 8 or 5, and others maybe 1 foot, they just don't want to release not even 1 foot.
I understand that it's just bad. You agree with it?
Yes, sir.
The wider sidewalks of that.
Absolutely.
It does matter.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to figure out how we use eminent domain to do one thing, but don't use to do the other thing where it makes sense. I'm just putting it out there, okay? And I had Ms. Rob, I have Ms. Gilyard.
Specifically as it relates to Danforth Road, that's consistent with the sidewalks that are been already installed by the city of Atlanta, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
As it relates to this, I know you talked about in your presentation the stamped curbing. Will it be consistent with what's already there? Because it does look different than, for example, the sidewalks along Campbell Road. So will they have that brick
Yes.
paver?
It will be stamped concrete. It will not be brick.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And I think my last question had to do with
Gilyard?
So when I look at it, it says on Danford, there's 7 parcels that you could not acquire, and on Enid there are 6. So is this the 13 properties that you need eminent domain for? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if I would like to know, I know you can't share the information about the people, but what amount of money are we talking about? What are they asking for? And what are you offering that presents the disagreement where the only alternative is eminent domain?
Right. I'm gonna have Mike explain that back to you in a little more detail. In some cases, it's not necessarily that they're asking a ton of compensation. Sometimes we just can't find property owners. We went and seek for them, and there's no responses and so on.
Yes, sir. Michael Brown, Fulton County Land Division. In some cases, we may have offered a property owner $10,000, and that property owner wants $200,000. And there's nothing to justify that type of increase in value, so it brings us to where we are. And to your point earlier, we're condemning because if we didn't condemn, we couldn't even build the 5-foot sidewalk on that side, so.
And so just one other thing. So out of the 13, how many do you have that you can't find? I mean, not necessarily can't find, that aren't responding.
I have 2 property owners on Danforth Road that meet that criteria.
Councilwoman Brown?
One of the things, I know we are moving forward with sidewalks all over the place, but I guess I have one of the challenges I see as we plan in the future, because it's, it'll be a couple of years before we see this. We already need to be planning for maintenance, because again, the same issue you have about not locating the landowners, that has become a major problem along areas where we don't know who the property owners, and they become very overgrown. We're experiencing some of those challenges along Campbellton Road, where there are a lot of, there are homes there, but, maintenance has become a major issue. So this kind of gets back into, whatever that cutting schedule and making sure we have enough staff to maintain these right-of-ways in the city. Because as we go, this is additional, sidewalk areas that will need to be cut more frequently when it's, not in its natural setting. So I wanted the city manager to kind of put that on his radar. Whenever you have these sidewalks, they really stand out when they're not being maintained.
So hence my comment about why the sidewalk. Once you put that little vegetation between the curb and the sidewalk, that becomes a maintenance nightmare. I personally think just bring the sidewalk out and make it larger. I mean, it doesn't look, to me, it doesn't look any better. All right, and I know that like on Old National, we put in some little brick pavers,
Stacked concrete.
stacked concrete. We can do stuff like that. Yeah, but grass grows through that.
Right.
But I just think that those little islands, they're just a maintenance nightmare.
Get there.
Any further comments? Okay, thank you all so much. Before we go any further, I'd like to acknowledge Representative Metz in the House. Good seeing you. Thank you for all you do.
The next item is a legal review presentation with pending legislation that's being made by Madam City Attorney. switch out PowerPoint presentations, and she's going to pull it up on me.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor and Council, we can get started while we work out some technical difficulties, but if you're from Fulton, Denmark, if you could come up to the front. You see it? I got to share it. So my purpose today is just to give the council a legal update to let you know what's happened for the last quarter from a legal perspective. I think this is helpful for you to allow you to give me feedback on items that we have moving forward, and also for you to know administratively and legal-wise what activities we have been doing with the city. These are all senior and regular associates at the firm. We have Eugene Smith, who has been practicing local government law period for decades. We have John O'Neill, who is very instrumental to the firm. All the attorneys up here attend council meetings, they work with local governments. They all do primarily, if not 95% or more, exclusive local government work. We have Serena Noel, who is our bond expert, I like to call her, but she has very substantial and considerable bond and finance information. She's handled millions of dollars in government bond and financing. She also used to work for the city of Atlanta, and she supervised and oversaw their bond financing as well. We have Lynn Belgin, who has worked for multiple jurisdictions. He's been the city attorney for Dunwoody, several cities. Is instrumental to the firm. We have Danielle McCarty, who is one of the smartest legal researchers I know in law school. I honed in and focused on legal research so I can spot when someone else has that same instinct, and we love her. We seldom have a very, very severe legal issue that we don't rely on anyone else to give us some feedback. And then we have Krista Freeman, who also has worked with local governments for several years and used to work in the city of Atlanta doing their local government affairs. And all the attorneys up here, since you guys have hired me as the city attorney, have been pretty much my backbone for doing legal work, for having legal work done. Particularly, Lenny has attended your Board of Zoning Appeals meetings since February. He's oversaw the meetings. He's ensured that the Board of Zoning Appeals have been in compliance. We have Krista Freeman, who has attended your planning commission and your code enforcement meetings. I attended those initially, but she took over from me back in February, and she has made sure that the meetings have gone smoothly. Both of those attorneys orchestrated with staff and with those boards to answer any questions and resolve any concerns that they would have. And all the attorneys have assisted us just generally with drafting ordinances, with doing resolutions, with questions that we may have, with whatever needs the city may have. And if we want to go to the presentation, let's see. Did the council have any questions for any of the attorneys or any before they sit back down?
Yes. That's fine. What's the question?
She said.
Yeah, before the attorneys sit back down, if you wanted to ask any of the attorneys anything specifically.
Not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet.
Yes.
Okay, well, you can take a seat. Thank you, guys. So essentially, the makeup of our law firm is we have three partners. It's myself and senior partner Steve Fincher, managing partner Winston Menwar. We've practiced together collectively for over a decade now. We've handled probably close to $1 billion in municipal and government financing. We have done substantial work for several local government entities. I've had a substantial and significant relationship with both of these individuals for over a decade. Any litigation, any fight that we have that is anything substantial, you will have me, Winston, and Margaret to push forward any agenda that you have and also protect the city's defense. And that's in addition to the attorneys that we have. And I'll go back to the first page. So some of our support staff is on this first page, some but not all. So we have all of our attorneys are assigned paralegals, and then we have billing specialists, a receptionist, people who provide general staff support. And if you want to know more about the backgrounds of our specific attorneys, I've put background information on the board as well. And then we have Marshall Mitchell. I don't know if Marshall is here today, but Marshall Mitchell is probably, he is not an attorney. He is a certified financial planner. He is a certified accountant. He has been employed and done service work for presidents for the state of Georgia, for multiple jurisdictions. He has been instrumental for our firm as far as being a conference center for our clients. At this point, we have not been able to engage with South Fulton to the extent that we would like to engage as far as coming up with revenue enhancing opportunities. But we do have a training session, an economic development session that is in progress that we hope to hold this month, where we can bring Marshall Mitchell in, as well as Serena Noel, and provide more information on potential economic development opportunities and kind of give the council an overview of what we've done for other cities in this area. And I'd like to say too, if you ever can't reach me, you are free to give any of the attorneys a call. You can call any of the associates, any of the partners at the office. It will not go outside the standard flat rate that the city pays. It's all included within that. So if you ever can't reach me or you want to talk to someone else, you are free to give any attorney in my office a call for any information. Anyone will help you. And if they're not available, they'll refer you to someone who can assist you. So what I've done is I've separated the items, the ordinances that we have adopted since 2/27/18. And this is since the last quarter, but 2/27/18 was also the first meeting that I've facilitated as the city attorney. I was appointed on 2/13, and this is the very next meeting, not the next meeting, but the next regular meeting. We did have a couple of special meetings between that point. So this is kind of a general overview of the ordinances that we've adopted since that point, and that's the loitering ordinance, noise ordinance, duties and powers of department heads, smoke-free air pollution, the air ordinance, ordinance establishing the police department, marijuana decriminalization, solid waste ordinance, ordinance establishing fire and rescue, city manager authorization ordinance, disorderly place, parking restrictions, council voting. We've amended the municipal court schedule. We've done collaborations with Fulton County with respect to the community court. We've done parks and recreation ordinance. A lot of these ordinances, I would like to applaud the city because a lot of these ordinances are substantial ordinances. They are necessary for the continuity and the smooth transition of this city from the holds of Fulton County. And you guys have not only hit and nailed these ordinances and adopted them, but you've done it smoothly and without a flaw, without a hiccup. We've had no major interruption of service, and you guys have accomplished this despite a lot of criticism that I've seen from the public. And I do think it's important for the public to know that you guys have done a tremendous job in making sure that there's continuity and uninterruption of services within this transition process. These are the resolutions that we've adopted in addition to these ordinances, and that is a Parks and Recreation Master Plan resolution, a resolution appointing an interim city manager, a resolution appointing an interim police chief, who is the current interim police chief, the Fulton Industrial Community Improvement District, resolution establishing police policies and procedures, IGAs with respect to police, the South Fulton CID agreement. You've established a business and community council, which I was very excited to begin on that conversation. You guys have phenomenal and great plans coming up for the citizens of South Fulton. You've also adopted the Older Americans Board, the City Anniversary Task Force, an ethics moratorium, a free court exemption, amended financial impact requirements, South Fulton CID expansion, ordinance designating the open records officer, traffic calming policies, environmental justice policies, and SIN-Town, LCI adoption policies and facilitation. So these are just some of the other great things that you guys have done since 2/27. So this is transitional accomplishments. It's obvious from a council perspective what we've done for the transition, but this includes some of the administrative items that I've done and my staff has done from a legal perspective. And that's finalized and adopted comprehensive fire code that's facilitating an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement with the county for supplemental fire services to assure that to the extent that you were not able to provide those services.
Madam Attorney, if you could not be long, just go through them, because they have a ton of questions that they want to ask.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor. So in general, that outlines what we've done for fire, also what we've done for police, multiple IGAs for police, the Parks and Recreation. We've had to review every single Parks and Recreation form in addition to the ordinances. Public Works, we have not transitioned Public Works, but it's forthcoming, and as part of that process that's coming towards the city, we have implemented the RFP and the solid waste process to ensure that the Public Works transfers, that we do have citywide solid waste collection in place and ready to go. And these are additional monthly meetings, and I've introduced the staff who has attended those meetings, just the code enforcement, planning commission, board of zoning appeals. And then we have routine administrative matters. So at any given moment, I probably, if you look at my email, I probably get close to maybe 20 to 30 emails from city staff a day, and that's from council members, that's from administrative staff. Obviously, my priority is, as far as my representation of the city, is to make sure that all council needs are addressed. And that's my #1 responsibility, and that means that I am on call 24/7 for any concern any council member has, and I try to respond to you immediately, and I make myself available to you whenever you call. I don't tell you where I'm at, but I've spoken to several of you in Disney World. I've spoken to you in line at Six Flags. I've spoken to you while I've been at Piccadilly. So I mean, my primary concern is making myself available to the council and trying to implement the needs of the council as you prepare for your meetings. When information is provided to me, I also source that out to my associates who then do legwork, research, and get that information back to me so that we can draft these policies and so I can give these policies a final review. So as far as staff, we also get emails from staff frequently with respect to open records assistance. Generally, staff doesn't include me on open records items unless someone is being harassing or problematic. And at that point, I've instructed staff that if you feel uncomfortable with anything that's coming their way with respect to open records to let me take over that conversation. And annexation document review, we have received 35,000 documents, pages of documents with respect to annexation work that we're looking into because this council is very, very concerned and very, very diligent with what's going on annexation-wise within Fulton and around the boundaries. So the attorneys that I've had here today, we have met collectively, all partners, myself, and 4 of the attorneys who just stood up and had roundhouse meetings at our conference tables. And we are going through these documents, thousands of pages at a time, and we hope to have a report to you by August. So that's something that we also have going on administratively. Anti-litem, we receive anti-litem notices regularly. If you're not familiar with what anti-litem notices are, it's a statutory requirement that before you sue a city for certain things, you have to give notice to the city, and notice has to include X, Y, Z. So that's just part of the formality of people saying, we might sue, so here's that notice. I received one from Dolores, Miss Baskin within the last week, and one today I picked up from the front staff. These are standard, they are routine. If you are not receiving these, then you're not a city. It's just part of the natural process of being a city. You're going to be sued. You're going to be sued frequently, and it's just part of being a council member and being a jurisdiction. So what we do is we respond to these anti-litems, we investigate, we deny, and then we notify the city's insurer that here's the denial letter that we sent out, put this on the file. Partly because the insurance will not, or they may not represent you if they are not put on notice that, look, this claim came through the city to notify us. So we, out of caution, make sure that everything we receive anti-litem wise is forwarded to the city's insurer. We have multiple interpleader actions that are going on, and I do have a litigation report with me. Obviously, that's confidential information, so I will give that to you in executive session for your request, but it itemizes what we're doing for litigation purposes. I will say that, applaud you again, I'm not aware of anything of any judgment that you've had to pay out to anybody or any ruling that's been disfavorable against you by any court. So far you have a phenomenal track record compared to other cities, although you were also a baby compared to other cities. But as far as the municipal court, we routinely get requests for legal input from the municipal court. We routinely get requests from the zoning department for procurement. There's not a department that I'm aware of that we don't get a request from at least once a week, multiple times a week. We give assistance with code enforcement matters. We have done several release agreements, volunteer waivers. We have the facilitation of the organization, the company that's going to provide tax administration for the city, so we review that agreement. We've facilitated with multiple outside vendors as far as non-disclosure, privacy, and other administrative testing requirements for the city. And we have reviewed several procurement and administrative services agreements. You would be shocked. The council has several agreements that go before the council, but Mr. Donald has probably about 7 to 8 times more agreements than you, just as far as what his responsibilities are with handling the day-to-day procurement tasks that are under that $50,000, we have $25,000 threshold. And he has been very diligent and responsive and timely as far as getting us documents to review. We have reviewed those documents, and we have probably a queue of maybe about 15 things that we're asked to review. So we review those just from a staff perspective. So that's a little bit of what we have going on with staff. Like, for example, before I came to the meeting today, I probably met with at least, I would say, 8 staff members about items that are going on as far as risk management, finance items, procurement items. So we work routinely and communicate frequently with staff. This is it's very hard to read it on the screen. Can you see that? Can you read that? Are you able to see that?
We have a copy of it.
Okay.
Do you have to go through each one?
And I'm gonna pull this on my computer as well, so it's easier to
If you
read.
will, yeah, give us a general overview. You wanna
Yeah, and
write
I've added additional items to this, and those additional items include the recognition of Councilwoman Willis for the solid waste. We did have an ordinance that was in place when I came in for solid waste. We did do substantial revisions to that ordinance. She was part of that process, and I did forget to put her name in parentheses, and she certainly reminded me of that, so I just would like to put her name, recognize her for the substantial work she did, because I do, considering the work she did, I would want high next to that as well.
You give us a general overview of what you got coming so we can,
So you guys can see with the paper before you what we have pending, and I will let you know that I have added to that list, orders and annexation, a order and annexation resolution that's being championed by Councilwoman Gilyard. She's very interested as far as buffers and orders and implementing certain zoning requirements. So I have been working with her the past 2 weeks and going over certain areas that she would like to hone in on that. And I've also added to this list, Councilwoman Willis has contacted me about a noise ordinance as well as putting firework protections in place, so I added that to the list. And I do need to collaborate and get with Willis and Gilyard because you both have given me noise provisions, so I just need to make sure whether they're the same, if they're different, we can do 2 separate things, and if they're the same, just to see if you guys want to collaborate on that. And I've also added Councilwoman Jackson's ordinance pertaining to pertaining to the housing authority. She is very interested to the extent we can in implementing a housing authority to the assistance and benefit of self-employed citizens. As well as I have added a food truck ordinance that's in the pipeline with respect to Councilwomen Gums and Rowell. And let's see, is there anything else that we added?
Subdivision turnover.
Yes, thank you. The subdivision turnover ordinance, I've added that, as well as the air pollution ordinance. And the air pollution ordinance is actually a piece that Councilwoman Gilyard and I prepared a while back, and she's gone through staff review, and the city manager gave her some feedback that she thought was sufficient to put the item on hold to have further collaboration. So that's something that I've been working with Councilwoman Gilyard and discussing with her the past few weeks as well. If there's anything additional, you guys can let me know, and we'll put that on the list. And my hope now is to get with Mr. Donald and establish a priority. Obviously, we'll be here all night if we put every single item from everyone on the next 3 agendas. So I do hope to get with him and establish a priority and communicate with you what that priority is, and if you want to make adjustments to that, you can instruct us accordingly.
Okay, Mr. Donald, as for me, I know, and this is to both of you, I know that there are a list of ordinances that we must pass before November. At last count, we were like 17 short. At last count. One thing I'd like to know is, all this is good, but if we don't do what we need to do by November, that's going to be problematic. So I need to know if that number has come down, or we got some pending stuff coming out. That's my first question.
So I would say to that one, so I mean, we met yesterday, we identified some key things that we need to work on, but I would say that for priority, there are some administrative activities, but then there are also some council activities that are new ordinances that are very important to council. And so we'll be working together. I think that's what the attorney was referring to about coming together to develop this priority list. So we're actually on the administrative side, everything from the zoning code to, I mean, there are a bunch of things that we have in the queue. And so we're taking those, the gentleman who facilitates all of our records or whatnot is capturing all of those things, and he's going to get them to us to funnel to our attorney, and we'll merge those with the pending legislation that's coming. And from there, I think, you know, it kind of just behooves council and you as the mayor, as you guys set the agendas to make sure that those priority activities kind of skip the line on some of the other wants and needs that you have.
That's exactly what I mean. And to add to that, there's going to be some, what terms I want to use, we're going to have to, in some cases, go to court on some things that pertain to the IGA, that pertain to Fulton County. And I would like to, you know, that same November 8th deal, I think stands in line with that also. Even if we don't go to court, I hate to keep saying go to court, but even if we have a legal matter that started prior to November, okay, then it would already been in the wheelhouse. So they can't use that against us. I'm just concerned about the fact that, and I would tell my colleagues, you know, there's a lot of things, I really appreciate every ordinance we got. But I would say to you that we have a short window, and there are a lot of ordinances, and there's a lot of legal work that has to be done between now and am I correct, Mr. Manager? November 8th, right?
Yeah, so that is the date or the deadline that we're looking at as the statutory date that those things should be transitioned.
Yeah. So, Madam Attorney, I think that's the focus for me. You know, to see that those things are done. Those are the things that put the meat on the bone, that shore us up as we sit. And then after that, we can play, you know, so to speak. So I'll be looking at where we are on those types of things.
On this list of outstanding ordinances that you gave us, can you please add a date on when we submitted the request to you? That would be very helpful to see how long it has been in the queue. And you just introduced a robust team of attorneys. And for me, I would like to see you get more support. I think that our requests sometimes get a little bottleneck. You've been responsive as far as being able to reach you and contact you, but I do see a delay in us getting our legislation requests back. We were asked for one date and then we may not see it or not have a follow-up or update. So to me, that says to me that you need more support. It could be that you're dealing with, I don't know, and some of the things I want to discuss back in the executive session, but for 6 people to stand up here and you say that they're here to support you, I would love to see more of that support so that we can get our requests back more timely. That's about it. Just add the date, and I'm asking the firm to provide you a little bit more support.
Ms. Jackson?
I want to thank you for the presentation that you just gave. It was very informative, and hopefully it answered a lot of questions, because there have been questions, and I don't see basically any difference from what we had in the past with the past firm, because we had problems with the past firm is getting our ordinances out, getting resolutions out. There were questions on consent, and the tape will show it. You know, tapes don't lie. So the tape will show those things as well. But I personally am proud that we have, I call a homegrown city attorney. And by that I mean a product of A. Philip Randolph Elementary School, a product of Minnie Jenkins at Camp Creek Middle School, and a product of Principal Herschel Robinson from Tri-Cities High School, whose motto was, "There's no right way to do a wrong thing right." And you lived in Cascade Hills subdivision from elementary through high school. Your parents paved the way for you by paying their tax dollars in South Fulton for all these years, and your scholastic abilities earned you the right to qualify you for the position where you sit right now. Continue to be true to yourself and continue not to compromise your dignity or integrity for anybody. For doing what's legally and lawfully right will always win. I commend you, Amelia, for everything that you do.
Ms. Jackson, let me commend you for your oratory.
It was oral, and it was good.
Let me commend you for your oratory.
I'm about tired of this.
But nothing to be tired of.
Yeah, I'm tired
No
of
one
it.
is-
You all didn't say anything about the Robbins Farm, excuse me.
Ma'am.
You didn't say nothing about the Robbins Farm, and they compromised us on a continuous basis.
I have the floor.
I'm tired of it now.
Well, you can be tired,
Oh,
but I
yeah,
have the floor.
we can bring it out.
Now, nothing about this presentation had anything to do with Robin.
No, but you want to come.
Excuse me,
You
I have,
y'all keep coming on her.
no one said one word about you, city attorney. We just asked you the things that we wanted to see. So I don't know where she's coming from.
You do.
All right, but I gotta, you wanna talk, I got a person up in our legal department who's our judge, who's got all them qualifications you just said. And we appreciate both of them. But it ain't germane here. We're talking about things we need to do right now before November the 8th. And what has Robbins got to do with that? Nothing.
I didn't bring his name
And
up.
so,
I said that.
excuse me, I have the floor. And so what I'm saying is, we're just trying to make sure that we get everything we get done before we run out of time on these IGAs and things. Has nothing to do, you're probably the greatest lawyer in the world, okay? What I'm saying to you is, this is what we need done. And I think you understand, the three of us met yesterday, all right? And we met yesterday and said nothing about the past, did we? Nothing. Me and you and the city manager. So I just want to make that clear. All this oratory about all this kind of stuff, and this is wasting my time, our
Well,
time.
you're doing an oral right now.
Wasting our time,
That's what you do.
and you cannot continue to be out of line on this deal, see? No, you're not going to continue to be out of line with this. Ms. Rob?
I want to thank you for the presentation. A couple things I also want to make sure we don't let fall off the radar. One is the Sandtown LCI. We talked about Fulton County adopting it. That was one of the conditions we had relative to that. Updating our ethics ordinance based on the recommendations you put forth a couple months ago. And the county adopting something relative to making sure we strengthen our truck ordinance relative to Senate Bill 445. So I just didn't want that to fall off, so incorporate that in the updates to the report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Gilyard?
I think that what you said was very important in terms of our focus, and I heard you, because I don't know what we need to adopt by November the 8th, and that is where I'm focused at right now. So it doesn't really matter to me, and I don't mean this in any negative kind of way, but it doesn't really matter to me when these were submitted, how long they've been in the pipeline. What I'm focused on right now is November the 8th, and anything that is really crucial, and the truck one is crucial. And I'm tired of people calling me about the trucks coming down our narrow streets. So that is really crucial, and whatever else is crucial to tie on to the November the 8th. Let's focus on that.
Absolutely.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Please.
Ms. Willis?
Yes, thank you for bringing up the truck ordinance. When you were supposed to give us a resolution, draft resolution, the last meeting you mentioned that you were going to send it to all of us, and then all of us were delegated to go talk with our commissioners, our commission representatives about sponsoring a resolution on the county level. We never did get that. So we need to try to get that as soon as possible so that we can that what you said? And so we were supposed to get that prior to July 1st so that we can get the county to legislate something on the county level. And for me, the date of submission is important because once you and Odie decide what is priority, then I think that you should focus on, after priority, the legislation that was submitted based on submission date. And we, as a council, were never told what policies needed to be instituted prior to November 2018, what we should be focusing on. So to hear that we got 17 policies outstanding is new to me, because I was never told that we had to focus on certain ordinances or resolutions had to be passed by November 2018. Some of it was common sense, but I didn't know we had a list of certain things that had to be done. So that would be helpful to get that to us as soon as possible, so that the 7 of us can probably, maybe in our strategy session, determine which area, which focus, how we can focus on getting those 17 pieces of legislation passed.
So I would say, in fairness, council member, any ordinance that you have adopted from Fulton County expires in November. And so all of those, I think you all know that. So in fairness, I think that's just something we need to look at and revisit, and that's what we're working on. But I would say additionally, there are other items, and I think we're going to speak briefly about it in executive session, like the tree ordinance that we talked about before, and there are some council considerations, but also some administrative considerations. And so that you would have to take on by November 7th. So again, I think definitely give us an opportunity to prioritize, but I also agree with you, some of those common sense items, if that's kind of, I know Parks and Recreation is a big thing for you. I know Smart City. So those items that are pending that need to come on in November, they expire if they were just adopted from the county. So we're going to have to address those.
So, and just to piggyback, how we were looking at ordinances, some of us was as we were transitioning departments over, we started looking at the ordinances that were applicable to the departments that were being transitioned over. So that's why Parks and Rec came up. That's why, we started looking at a lot of the, when we transitioned business licenses, we looked at some of the code enforcement. So that was kind of our thought process. But if we need to expedite how we legislate policy so that we can be in compliance, I would ask that we get that structure as soon as possible.
Okay. Councilman Khalid.
So, just to dovetail off those last comments, I do think one thing that is going to be extremely important going forward is our sanitation contract and our public works department. Just really all of my constituents of highest priority, according to my call logs. So when we brought over, and at some point we were doing our criminal code, and our solicitor, Don Jones, another homegrown person, shout out to Tri-Cities and Westlake. But she did a sort of comprehensive criminal code. It kind of bumped up against individual work that we were doing in silos. I know that I have been talking with David Clark a lot about public works and traffic calming. So if there is a way, before we have that same sort of issue again, if we can have some kind of comprehensive, or maybe take it section by section, where we talk about our traffic policies and our public work policies, particularly our financing policies for things like speed bumps or stop signs, because we can't necessarily, we have some financing challenges for those things. So I would like to see us do that. And then finally, I do want to say, I have found you to be incredibly responsive. I was wondering how you got back to me so fast, and now I see that it wasn't just you, it's a team of folks. And I'm also really, I know that, and I'm not sure the public is aware, but I know that this firm also works with College Park, and they have done amazing things. You all have done amazing things around economic development for the city of College Park. So I look forward to you all doing the same for us. and talking about that this Saturday at our Economic Development Summit. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Baker.
Councilman Mayor. Khalid kind of touched on what I was going to speak about in reference to sanitation, but since he did say it, I do want to say thanks for the presentation. It was thorough. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Mitchell in his absence and Ms. Serena. I don't know if she's still here. I've been allowed to bug them on occasions, and I appreciate you guys. And I think we're going on track. I know the mayor has a system that I've learned about, and even if everybody doesn't know collectively, he has sent emails to actually say why certain things priority-wise hasn't been on the agenda, and I've been able to understand and digest it and, fall back on certain things, given that we have that November date. So I think that we're on track.
I would ask one thing for you to take in consideration, Mr. Manager and Mr. Madam Attorney. And that is, I think we could cut some of our time in conversation and communication as it pertains to ordinances and other things. And I've said this before, if any one person on this deal puts out an ordinance, then six or seven other people should see it. We should see it. We should be floated around. And then once it is done and they've given their input, that the user departments, whether it be community development, whether it be police, whether it be fire, should also see it and make their comments. And I think that if we do it that way and we finally bring it to the council, then we have a document that we really can talk about. Because a lot of times we find ourselves amending ordinances. And we amend them because nobody laid eyes on them, And so I just think that as we go forward, I would like to see us, and this is what you were talking about, Mr. Baker, that I was talking to him about. If we do that, we'll cut down on a lot of time we have on conversation, and we'll come in and have a few comments and get things done. As we go in the future, I would like to see us do something.
I think the new ordinance that you guys passed about, so I think it touched on the FISC process, but it talked about the 15-day read and all that good stuff.
Correct.
I think that
would
will take care of the process. What we probably administratively need to do is identify the person that once council has their final draft, and it'll probably be Mr. Pascal since he's coordinating that. It go to him, and then the 15-day clock starts, and we've got to make sure everybody touches it to get it back. And so I think
15 days, but I just want everybody who has any interest in it to make those comments. We make those comments when they get here, but we need to have everybody's comments done.
This is just an observation. I think relative to the process, one of the key things with the ordinances as they come back, you may draft it and send it to attorneys. By the time you get feedback, they often change. And so it's a work in progress. And I think that's some of the challenges, so that by the time it gets on the agenda, you don't have it's not a long period of time between the two. I think that's part of the challenge. Because by the time it goes to the department review, the attorney review, it doesn't often look the exact same as when you presented it. So, I don't know, maybe at some point you're on a shared drive, something that when they get to that point, it's still, I don't think it'll be a lot of time in front of it, just because we have so much to look at between now and November. But I just think it's the process, making sure everybody touches it. It never looks the same, actually.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to go to executive session.
I make a motion that we go to executive session for what purpose? For personnel litigation.
And real estate.
And real estate.
Okay.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.